So today we're going to be exploring the area of big data. It's a terminology that's been bandied about for some time, and certainly in terms of FP&A, maybe an area which people are somewhat wary about, maybe don't have as much knowledge, but certainly an area that needs to be considered. So lucky enough today we've got an expert on this. We've got Brian Kalish, who's the founder of Kalish Consulting Group. Welcome, Brian.
Oh, pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for coming along. So maybe if we can start with some initial terminology. You know, what is big data, especially when it relates to FP&A?
Well, I think, when we think about big data, I mean, you can start with the idea that it's everything. So you think about what's going on in your organization, outside your organization, what's structured, what's not structured. To me, what's fascinating, and I always love learning new terms, is that we're now operating in a world of Bronto bytes, which always gets people's eyebrows to raise up because they're not quite sure what that means. Well, it's 10 to the 27th power. That is the scope that we're dealing with. And so the big challenge is with this world of an unbelievable amount of data, how do you determine what's valuable, what's not valuable? Yes, it's wonderful that we have these great tools that let us dive deep, but we have to still be able to prioritize. So you really have to do the analysis. Really, what's the ROI of doing the analysis on anything? Because if everything's important, then nothing's important.
In terms of FP&A specifically, what do you see as being the sort of timeline and the kind of next steps and the kind of the ideal adoption path for FP&A organizations?
So I believe that FP&A organizations should be moving towards a culture of analytics, to be driving data, to be creating data-driven decision making. And so you really have to think about where you are on the maturity curve. So I have kind of four roles. I have the reporter, the observer, the advisor, and then the strategist. And pretty much if you want to stay in a reporter-observer role, actually this isn't really important to you because what you're talking about is much more transactional based. Talking about, what's happened. Where big data really has value is it gets us to the point of asking, why did it happen, what might happen, and how can we make it happen? So you have to have the people, the processes, the technology, and what I actually spend a lot of time on, the culture. So as you want to make these changes, so everyone gets excited about big data, but the first thing is, well, okay, what are you going to do with it? Can you get it? Okay, so that's step one. But then do you have the people that know how to do the analysis? Do you have the technology that will permit you to do the analysis? And then what I kind of think about it, is there a consumer for the analytics, and that being internal? So, if I'm the director of FP&A and I spend a lot of time swimming in big data, for lack of a better term, but nobody cares what the analysis is, it'll die. So you have to have all four of those components in alignment to really drive FP&A to that next level where we're not providing hindsights, we're really getting into insights and ideally into foresights. So we're talking about going from having descriptive analytics to diagnostic analytics to predictive and then ultimately to prescriptive. Because what we want to do is we want to help the business make better, faster, smarter decisions. And the way that we're going to do it is providing them with insight, which people tend to forget is not just something you don't know, but it's something that's actionable. And so by leveraging this tremendous data source that we now have available to us, we can just do analytics that we couldn't have even possibly done 5 years ago.
And expanding upon that, some of the kind of traditional old beliefs in terms of architecture and technology and things like that are somewhat changing, I understand. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, if you think about really how we've acquired data over the last 20 or 30 years, it's really been with a data warehouse. And the architecture involved with that would be called ETL, and that's extract, transform, and then load. And so what it involved was a tremendous amount of coding. Everything that you wanted to do, you had to think about ahead of time, and you had to bring in IT and data scientists and basically map out everything that you could possibly use. Now, it made a lot of sense because where a lot of that data was coming was from inside your organization. So you knew the data that you had, you knew what you wanted to get out of it, and just the technology as it existed, that's pretty much the box that we were operating in. For me, it's a lot of fun. I get to play in a new world right now, which when I introduce the idea to people, I love the fact they typically have their arms crossed, they're shaking their head no, and they're looking at me like I'm trying to tell them about magic. And the difference is just transposing two of the letters. So we go from E to L to T, and that is extract and then load, and then we transform. So when working with a data warehouse, you're only pulling out those pieces of data that you know you're going to need. In this new structure, we basically take everything. So this is where we can really start incorporating big data. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do with it, but you're bringing it all in. And so, of course, as all good consultants are, we have terms. So we're moving from a data warehouse to a data lake. And the idea being that you basically put all the information into your data lake, and then as you need it or as the questions arise, you pull the pieces out. So that's when you do the transformation. But the beauty is you can take in information in basically any source, put it in the data lake, and then you're only going to do the transformation as you pull it out. So what it creates is you can do things a lot faster. I mean, going from hours to minutes or even seconds. And again, that's where the magic comes in. People say, it's not possible to do this. And so actually, I just came back from a trip on the West Coast and I was with a client. And I basically said, give me your data. Because if I show you a demo with my data, who knows whether it's real or not. But I challenge people, tell me a problem you're having. And what this technology will permit us to do is drive all the way down the transactional level. So I'm tying everything back to the penny. There's no summarization, and I'm getting close to what I want. I can literally go to the penny on any transaction that occurs anywhere in the world and tie everything back. So I think that's one of the big things that's changing. Now, the reason we can do that, and we couldn't have done it even 4 years ago, was because of the analytic machines that are now behind it. They're so powerful, they're so quick. We're actually able to manipulate the data in a usable form in a reasonable amount of time at what's very important is at a very competitive price.
No, thank you, Brian. And of course, you can find all Brian's details in the description below.